Welcome to Season 3 of Off Script with Sam Monk, Senior Leader of Equippers Church. We're talking about what's worked, what hasn't, and leadership lessons from the journey. Enjoy today's podcast.
Well, here we go again, another episode.
We're back.
And it's great to have Jake in the chair with us. And Jake's on team with us, leads our Manukau location, South Auckland, New Zealand.
Come on.
And he's just been in the team for a number of years.
Long time, yep.
And I want to say, if you didn't catch the last episode, go back, watch it. I believe it will be helpful because we're continuing on that conversation in this episode. And we're talking about killing sacred cows.
Yep. We talked about killing the sacred cow, but we realised there might be more than one cow for some people.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of cows out there.
Could be multiple cows.
Yeah, well, I like the definition that one person said is like a sacred cow is your favourite imperfection that you wish to protect.
Yeah, right.
It's like we've all got imperfections. Everybody would acknowledge that.
It's a confronting thought. It's a really confronting thought.
Yeah. And we're talking about, especially in the light of the society that we live in, very consumeristic. How many don't like convenience out there? Convenience is cool. It's amazing.
Yeah,
I'm attracted to convenience, but convenience doesn't produce the kingdom in us.
Yeah.
Anything that's worthwhile, of benefit, normally comes from a place of deep-seated conviction.
Convenience helps us, but doesn't really help us.
No,
it helps us with day-to-day stuff that's not really important. But we don't want to lead our spiritual life on convenience because that's not going to help us.
Yeah. And when it comes to leadership as well, and that's what we're really speaking about in terms of our leadership. And really, in a lot of places, we can want the promised land, we can want milk and honey, but we want the delivery method of mana, which is just something outside of our tent. But if we're going to go into the promised land and everything that God has for us, it's going to require you and I to go after some stuff. And conviction does that. Conviction produces what I'd call a fighting faith. Mm-hmm. A lot of people can say, I got faith today. That means they have a belief system. But when the pressure comes on, it's like what's in you comes out. Do you continue on? Do you hold your ground, or do you keel over and just give in? And I think what's needed more than ever in the church is a fighting faith.
Yep.
And I like what Paul said to Timothy, we've got to fight the good fight of faith. We've got to fight for our right to party. I just had to throw that in there because I knew Jake wanted to.
We wrote a song about fighting the good fight of faith.
Yeah,
back
many
in the day.
Years ago.
Revolution album, I believe it was.
Yes, way back.
That's how old we are.
Yeah. But it is a fight. It is a wrestle. Just hold your ground. Stay your course.
Well, I think we talked about that in the last episode too, about counting the cost. The cost is real, but I think it's a sense of the cost is real, but it's really worth it. And people of conviction are people that we all look up to and go, wow, that's a life.
Yeah.
But no one knows the journey of what it is to get there. In fact, you've often had people say to you in the past, oh man, Sam, I want to do what you do, man. Yeah. If I could just do what you do. And you're like, cool, but you've got to then understand the journey of the cost that it took. Even last week we talked about the relational cost of sometimes what that takes.
Yeah.
Like the emotional, all these things add up to conviction, but we want conviction, but it doesn't come on the cheap.
It doesn't, no. Yeah, and conviction is just your lived out values. You're living these values out. And I think in a lot of places, many people get attracted to the sound of faith.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
But they don't know the substance of faith. Right. Well, Hebrews talks about that faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things unseen. And a lot of people, it's like sound creates expectation.
Right.
Take the movie Jaws.
Yep.
1985? I can't remember, but...
None of us went in the water for quite a long time after
the
that.
soundtrack of Jaws is...
Oh, dun it.
And what's that? That's creating expectation that something's about to happen. Good soundtracks and movies are all building a level of intensity and that. And you can get attracted to the sound, which creates expectation, but it's not substance.
Yep.
Sometimes there's no substance to it. And we need the sound of faith. The sound of faith is really important, but more than that, we need people with substance who are going to hold on when everything in their world says the opposite.
Yeah, and that's the nature of conviction. The conviction is holding on through, through the storms of life, through the inevitable challenges that are going to come, especially in leadership. When you put yourself up there, you put yourself out there. How many times do we know that people leading for the first time and they're like, man, I've never had more challenge than I had before. But it's that's still the nature of faith, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're putting your faith in a God who loves leadership and loves people stepping into places of leadership, really honors that. But you know that there's going to be attacks that are going to come because you're more of not the threat to the enemy, but you're sort of, the enemy's more aware of you now because, hang on, they're starting to get it,
Yeah. And, let's face it, there's going to be, we're all going to face disappointment.
Yeah.
And disappointment is real, and it gets you right in.
Well, I think disappointment, again, if you get asked that question a lot when you've been around a long time, hey, what would be the one thing that, in your leadership journey? And I keep thinking, like disappointment, cost, pain.
Yeah.
Like the other things, Sam Chan wrote that book, Leadership Pain.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. Like it's the stuff that really forges something in you to know, man, and what's, I think you shared the other day about, that, hey, when you've done all to stand. Yeah.
And I think the big part in that is when the cause is so front and center, the cost doesn't become an obstacle.
So explain that a bit more.
So when you've got a vision of what God wants to do,
right,
and a vision of what God can do in that place.
Because you've seen it too.
Because you've seen it, you go, oh, it's not that big a cost.
Yeah.
I think, there is a cost, but you've got to have conviction to pay that.
Yeah. And
the conviction is that, hey, God's going to work.
Yeah.
God's going to move. And, the conviction is that he's put me where I need to be. And if I just give my all in this space, he's going to lead, guide me. He's going to position me. He's going to enable me, empower me, and do the rest. And it's some of those convictions is going back to the conviction of, well, God can use me right here, right now.
Yep.
I don't have to go through years of study before God can use me.
Yeah.
He can use me now.
I don't have to know a whole bunch of stuff. I used to think that too. Oh, I've got to read. Reading's good. Readers are leaders, but it's not because you read that you suddenly get conviction about stuff, or you.
Well, I think what grows a ministry and has an impact on people is that fighting faith. Because you see somebody with a conviction and you go, wow, that's attractive.
Yeah, you do. And I think, that builds authority, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like that, we love authority. We love seeing people with authority. Come on, like it's just wow. And Jesus was one who, the Pharisees were shocked because he spoke as one having authority.
Yeah, and the thing is, he lived it out.
Yeah,
yeah. And I think the difference is so often we want the easy way, but we've got to do things the right way, or there's the best way, and easy is not necessarily good. Yeah. When there's grace, there is an ease.
Yep.
But it doesn't mean it's easy.
Yep.
Because we're called to do the impossible. And that's the challenge. But developing authority, I think in a lot of places, people want to recognize where there is a wave and catch that wave. But somebody with authority can start something out of nothing. And I think I've shared before, when you've got authority, you have the ability to author your world. You have the ability, so you can, if you don't like the script, if you don't like the last chapter, write a new chapter. You have the ability to author your world, and we need leaders who are able to do that.
You also, you used to say something, you've just prompted me, you mentioned waves, something, that when you have authority, you've also got that ability, we need to have the ability to create waves rather than just surf on them.
Yeah, or just, instead of catch a wave, you just recognize where there is a wave, is to start a wave.
Yeah.
When you've got authority, you can start something out of nothing.
Yeah.
And I believe that's needed right around the world right now.
Yeah.
In workplaces and homes, as we need people who have spiritual authority. But the whole thing, the nature of conviction is because you got conviction, you said yes to something. That means straight away you've said no to a whole lot of other options.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
With convenience today, the danger is we've got so many options.
I think it's like the ham aisle, man. I go to the supermarket, I look at the ham aisle, and I'm like, there's 50 options, I don't buy ham. In fact, there was a great study, a jam study. I know you want to hear this.
I can't say I've ever gone to the ham aisle.
There was a jam study, and they put 27 different jams there. And then the next day they put 3. Most people bought on the day that there were 3 because the options overwhelm people.
Yeah.
And they end up doing nothing.
Yeah.
And I think it goes to your point that when we have too many options, we don't tend to be effective at anything.
Well, I think that happens in a lot of places. It's like we're giving a whole lot of our kids too many options, church too many options. It's just like, hey, this is who we are. This is what we're about. And I think the clearer you are, it's like people can make a decision. And the reality is, as I've said here, is as a church, we're never going to be everybody's cup of tea. That's why we're part of a body.
True.
And yes, I like to think everybody will feel welcome, everybody could find home here. But the reality is some people are going to better fit at the church down the road, and there's no problem with that. But I believe the clearer you are, and the clearer you are and who you are and what you're called to do, the more people can then actually make a decision.
And I think we've always prioritized relationships, haven't we? I think that's been important, but that's not. We prioritize the gathering together, but it's more than that. And again, I remember someone giving feedback on what we do one day was, you're the kind of environment where you'll sit at a cafe table and ask people the questions of life, the deeper questions of life, whereas other environments, which we can't talk into, but a lot of environments don't do that. Yeah. And I think that sense of, no, we're prepared to go there. Faithful are the wounds of the friend, but the enemy multiplies kisses, right? So we're prepared to ask the questions that really matter because we want that authenticity in relationship.
I think that's because the richness of life is not in how big the crowd is.
Yeah.
The richness of life is those that you have great relationship with. And when you say yes to a relationship, like my wife said yes, as you did with your spouse, said yes, suddenly other options off the table.
Yeah, exactly. You hope so, eh?
yeah, you hope so.
Is that the ex-girlfriend holding on? No.
Well, it's just, man, we've said yes, so now we're together. We're going to work on our issues. Yeah, we're going to work. Otherwise, life's going to be a nightmare.
Do you think it's like that in church and leadership? If you've said yes, then at the first hurdle, you can't then go, nah. Yeah. Like, well, you've said yes, so...
Let's work through our issues.
Let's work through the relational side so that
let's work it, because that's, you work through your issues, you get to the other side. It's like you go to a greater level of intimacy.
Yeah.
You go to a greater level of connection because you work through issues. And I think because of convenience and options, sometimes we short circuit that whole process. It happens in a marriage, but I believe it should happen on every level. It's like, hey, the richness of life is, man, we work
forge through some stuff, and I think, and then you feel like you've got some bruises, you've had some robust debate, you've had some conversations, but that's the nature of ongoing relationship. You can look back and go, we've got through some stuff, but man, there's something. There's something that a team can hold fast to know that, man, we've been through it together. And maybe it's stretching the analogy too far, but that sort of trench warfare, like, man, we were there in those moments to get fighting together, and that builds something that, the enemy really can't take away.
And then you're not as precious about every word.
Well, you don't have to hedge what you say as much, or, hey, hear this in the right way. We should already have that relationship.
You're not having to,
can I say this?
Which is a big thing in a team. It's like, please hear my heart more than words, because sometimes I'll get the words wrong. More than words? Oh, another song.
More than words. I won't.
Yeah. Which I think conviction does. It brings clarity.
Yeah.
It just brings clarity. And a lot of people live in the state of being overwhelmed. Should I do this? Should I do that? I think, when you make a decision, you got conviction around it, hold to it. And, if it's the wrong decision, I'm confident God will redirect me if I got it wrong.
That's a good point, though, because I think a lot of people are concerned. I mean, how many times do we hear people say, I want to stay in the will of God? Like, the will of God, you make a decision, God's big enough to turn it around. He's big enough to, it might take a little longer, but there's something about the stepping out in faith, You got to do something.
We always say it's hard to steer a parked car.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're in the garage looking for direction. Get
Yeah.
moving. God will direct you in that right space. And I think conviction builds that level of clarity.
Yeah.
Just clarity. It's just I got clarity of who I am and what I'm about. And the whole thing is, in the end, without a level of conviction, it's hard to follow Jesus. Well, it's almost impossible.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, I got a conviction on this. And as a leader, we've got to get past the thing of trying to impress people.
Yeah.
Which is, a danger, a temptation.
Well, if you're right, because you can't follow Jesus and conform to the pattern of this world. Like, there's so much about what Jesus came to do that is so opposite of what the world would be promoting. The individualism, the consumerism. We're fighting that tide the whole time. We're asking people to swim upstream. We're constantly saying, no, you've got to go against the flow. But yet, that's this dichotomy, is that as you do that, the world notices.
Yeah.
There's conviction, there's authority.
Yeah.
What is it about that person that's not prepared to do the things that, and I think isn't that the opportunity that we have?
That's a massive opportunity.
It's a massive opportunity.
Yeah. It's massive. And like our gifts can impress people.
Yeah.
Like, the gifts that God's given people, man, they're impressive on so many, but it's got to go beyond that to where we actually impart faith. We impart, and you impart out of who you are. It's who you are as a person, and you impart that. And I believe, that impartation is really important on so many levels. Yeah, from the gift, but also from who you are as a person. So, the challenge, I believe, is just, okay, let's address, the desire for convenience.
Yeah.
And where do I need to go? Hey, I need to get some conviction on this so that I can overcome the obstacles that would get in my way.
Yeah.
Get in the way of really seeing God move in a space. So.
Yeah. And I think it's like we started, I think, the last episode, killing the sacred cow or cows, plural. But what you talked about, that the flesh is, the flesh is weak, the spirit's willing.
Yeah.
Such a good thought.
Yeah, well, in the end, if I can speak to somebody's spirit, I'm speaking to the willing part of them. I don't want to appeal to their flesh. There's a part inside everybody that's willing. If we can just get through the layers and, let there be an awakening within people's spirits, I believe we'll see a greater response in Jesus' name. Well, I pray this has been a blessing. That's another episode. Like, subscribe, share, do whatever, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Off Script with Sam Monk. If you found this podcast helpful, make sure you pass it on. We love your feedback, so drop us a line about what topics you'd like to hear about on Off Script with Sam Monk.